Good morning. I know that you're all on mute, so I know that you can't actually answer back. So I'm just going to assume that you can all hear me okay. If someone can wave, that would be good. Good. Good morning and welcome to this Smart Sustainable East Kilbride Stakeholder event. So thank you for coming along this morning. Before we get started, I just want to go through some housekeeping. The meeting today is scheduled for 1 hour, but may run over a little, so I'll apologise ahead of time if we do. This meeting today is being recorded, so if anyone objects to being recorded, unfortunately you're going to have to leave now because I will be recording everything, and it will be available as a recording later on this week. As you will have noticed, your microphones are currently muted. And I would respectfully ask that you remain on mute for the duration of the meeting so as not to inadvertently interrupt the presentations. I hope that you will find the presentations today interesting and thought-provoking. I would ask, though, that due to the number of participants today, that if you have a question, could you please raise your hand electronically and send a message in the chat, and the presenters will try and answer the questions if they possibly can during the presentations. If that's not possible, I will do my best to collate any unanswered questions and have them answered offline afterwards. So if this is your first interaction with Smart Sustainable East Kilbride, Smart Sustainable East Kilbride is a public-private partnership that was initiated by South Lanarkshire Council, Scottish Enterprise, South Lanarkshire College and Lanarkshire Enterprise Services to seek partnership opportunities with the business communities of East Kilbride. SSEK seeks to initiate and support projects that will use the assets and potential of East Kilbride to create a multi-dimensional low-carbon centre of excellence across the town, generating growth and jobs and supporting a sustainable future local economy. The purpose of the meeting today is to provide you with an update on the progress of some of our meetings and to introduce you to guest speakers from organisations who are leading a transformation in the way that we go about our business today. Right, and just like the old joke about 3 buses coming along just when you've been waiting for ages, we actually have 3 projects that we want to talk about today that will be launched in South Lanarkshire later this year. So I will shortly introduce you to Dr. Butler and Paul Cantwell from University of Strathclyde and the newly formed National Manufacturing Institute for Scotland, who will present a project which, in partnership with Smart Sustainable East Kilbride and South Lanarkshire Council, aims to meet the challenge of how local SMEs can benefit from entering into the circular economy. I don't want to talk too much about it because obviously Paul is champing at the bit to go, but the project will see the University of Strathclyde working with 3 local authority areas, South Lanarkshire, East Ayrshire and South Ayrshire, to work in the aerospace, rail and renewables sector to address the challenges around extending the lifespan and repurposing of valuable assets such as aircraft, train rolling stock and wind turbines. The funding announcement, which came earlier on in January, comes at the end of a year-long competitive process in which the university was supported throughout by the 3 local authorities and Smart Sustainable East Kilbride to bring part of the project to South Lanarkshire. This will then be followed by a presentation by Maureen Stevenson and Jennifer Finn from AC White. AC White are pioneers in the use of external wall insulation in Scotland to improve the fabric of new and existing buildings to meet the requirements for buildings as we continue our journey towards net zero. AC White have been providing external wall insulation services since 1987 and will today be discussing the growth in their industry and future opportunities. The presentation today is timely as South Lanarkshire College have recently completed their internal wall insulation teaching and assessment area. The new installation was built following a successful funding application by South Lanarkshire College in partnership with Smart Sustainable East Kilbride to the Energy Skills Partnership. This real-time learning facility that you can see here, at least in the blueprint, will provide a working environment which allows students to learn, develop knowledge and practice the skills required to apply external and internal wall thermal insulation in retrofit and new build settings. As you can see here, it's just about complete. Our centre aims to provide skills and supply chain knowledge to enable around about 120 students per year to enter the low carbon economy, increasing the capacity and capability within the local supply chain. Looking at the pictures, I did quite ignorantly ask if we wanted to show these because it looks like a building site, until I was reminded very much that that was what the point of the assessment area was, and that the students would actually learn there on site as to in a real-time environment and to learn real skills going forward that they can use. Right, one more thing before we start, and this is the third project that we just got authorization to talk about this morning. So we can discuss at more length in a future meeting, is the announcement that East Kilbride Town Centre will host a pilot retrofit project this year called Work Near Home. The aim of this project is to demonstrate the potential work using a modular sustainable approach to retrofit, which supports the use of local materials and SMEs to develop local work solutions. The project will deliver an open source design toolkit, which will be piloted in a refurbished shopping centre within the East Kilbride Town Centre. This project of national importance is in response to an innovation challenge led by Transport Scotland to support people to work near home as we tackle the continued challenges of finding new ways to work in the wake of the pandemic, to reduce our emissions from travel, and to provide a template for town centre regeneration. This project is being funded by Transport Scotland, with a steering board consisting of Transport Scotland, Construction Scotland Innovation Centre, South Lanarkshire Council, Scotland Futures Trust, and Smart Sustainable East Kilbride. The project itself is just coming to the end of phase one, which is the design and procurement phase. The build phase is expected to continue through 2021, should phase one meet expectations, with the delivery of the project coming from the project team, which again is the Construction Scotland Innovation Centre, Edinburgh Napier University, Ecosystems, Census, and a number of SMEs. You should be able to see some of the images on screen now as to what the space could potentially look like. As I've said in this quick overview, we're not going to do it proper justice right now, and we hope to revisit this at a future stakeholder meeting. But if you would like further information on this, you can either contact me on this, or I can get you in touch with the Construction Scotland Innovation Centre. At this point, if Paul is ready, my lights have just gone out. If Paul is ready, are you ready to go?
Yeah, hopefully everyone can see my screen. Is that Michael? Can you see my screen okay? Yeah, great. Yeah. Hi guys, so my name is Paul Cantwell. I'm one of the leads for the recent win from the Low Carbon Challenge Fund that was championed and run by Scottish Enterprise. The focus of the programme is really to help enable supply chain to develop servitization models or business support around life extension and reuse of existing infrastructure that's within Scotland, within the manufacturing community. And that's a wide range of applications I can appreciate. And you might be asking, why have we focused on manufacturing in this? Well, the current UK manufacturing emissions is roughly accounting for around about 15 to 30% of the greenhouse gas emissions from the UK. And recent studies have even shown that around about 8 to 9% of those emissions are actually coming from elsewhere. So this is based on the demand of manufactured products that we consume as a society to develop our infrastructure and provide the high skilled jobs and value that we create across Scotland. So it presents a brilliant opportunity for us to become more sustainable, start to reshore some of those services or products and compete on a more environmentally friendly means or manner, rather than being beaten up by our costs of manufacturing. It's important to realise that to truly unlock the net zero ambition by 2045 in Scotland, it's essential for industry to start to progress towards circular economy business models and practices within their own organisations. That could be looking at the feedstock, the materials, that could be looking at waste reduction within their facility, and that could be to embrace kind of decarbonised process energy sources, but also to help inform them how sustainability and circular economy models can be more sustainable from a business point of view and an economics point of view against conventional linear approaches. And really that's the purpose of this programme. The programme aims to target 3 key sectors in Scotland: aerospace, looking at the decommissioning; rail industry, an ever-growing market that's launched their decarbonisation strategy and looking to create local content; and renewables from the 10-point recovery plan and the energy white paper. We see some great ambitions to create additional capability of creating sustainable power, but also creating local content in regions to supply the demand of those areas. This fund has enabled us to basically provide a free service that will primarily focus on engaging SMEs who traditionally have not had or had little involvement with the identified sectors, and support them on their journey to embrace more sustainable practices and also identify sustainable circular economy business models or technologies that they can embrace to reduce their own carbon footprint, or to provide what is classed as a circular economy service or servitisation to the industries. The objectives is to establish opportunities for SMEs to engage with the 3 mentioned sectors, so it's a market pull rather than a market push. So identify enablers for market adoption, so we're talking closely with these sectors to identify what their ambitions are for net zero and where they feel that they would benefit from more local content and more sustainable local content. And then there's also interest to support SMEs to unlock opportunities in climate change emergency, to build clusters or ecosystems around these challenges, and try to create a value chain in the circular economy area, whether that's acceptance of materials from assets as feedstock into your own products and services of the future, or whether that's providing local content in terms of asset management support and being able to offset the carbon footprint by the conventional, traditional means of taking broken and old, disposing through recycling, and then calling in a new component. We're more about trying to offset carbon footprint as best we can and sweat the asset as much as possible. So why have we chosen the 3 sectors? So rail, as I mentioned before, has a strong emphasis not only on decarbonising the existing infrastructure by 2040, and it's also looking to potentially remove or retrofit 4,000 diesel-driven rolling stock. But the operators and the OEMs are looking to improve the quality of service and reliability. So this is around better management of assets, looking for local content who can conduct the service and maintenance of those assets, or looking for local supply who could remanufacture the components that traditionally have a very long lead time and has a risk associated to the operations of the rolling stock to get it back into play again. The opportunities for those parties involved will be to identify lower cost of operations and in service, reliability of supply chain and lead time reduction for the operators and OEMs seeking solution, and the development of a new value chain across Scotland. It's appealing to industry because it can demonstrate a reduction in the current carbon footprint associated to imports of products and services, but it also unlocks net zero targeted funding calls in the future. So our ambition is to build objectives, to build clusters and organisations to work together to tackle the rail industry sector challenges, and to apply for either Scottish Enterprise or Scotland or Innovate UK funding that we're aware of, that are looking to enable sustainable circular economy practices within the supply chain. The wind energy sector, so predominantly people have been aware of the 10-point recovery plan, setting out the ambition of 40 gigawatts offshore wind capacity with 1 gigawatt of floating, with a 60% local content. But one of the areas that is continuously actually looked over is there's also an ambition by 2030 to actually repower around about 1.2 gigawatt capacity of pre-existing infrastructure. So that's actually working on technologies and enabling local content or local supply chain to provide services, remanufacturing, repurpose, reuse, to enable that asset to continue its operational efficiency and still create a yield that enables that asset to be extended from the traditional 20 to 25 years to 30 to 35 years in service and operation. At the moment, we have 770 wind turbines due for decommissioning over the next 4 years. There's also perceived potential value in recovering those assets rather than sending it to the scrap merchant, looking at what components could we remanufacture and recover and redeploy as a spares inventory to the industry as well, where they're interested to see how they can better control and better influence their buying power of the amount of spares that they're having to stock, or whether that will actually enable them to create local content, quicker turnaround times, and de-risk the portfolio of the wind asset itself in operation, either onshore or offshore. Opportunities, again, lowering the cost of operations through life, reliability in terms of supply. So if they have a breakdown, it's maybe a quicker turnaround time to get spares in play. And also it's an enabler to create local content where it's not long lead times. You don't have issues with imports and kind of cross-country lead times of components. But also the industry are quite interested in the fact that we can also help them to identify carbon footprint offsets. Although the technology has done a great job in generating sustainable power, at the end of life, the CO2 emissions involved in the process are quite damaging to the brand. So can we develop more sustainable practices and release value and utility in those assets, in those materials, and create a value chain around that within the UK? And it's reaching our net zero ambition to reduce the amount of landfill and waste that we actually create, and the carbon footprint associated to export of materials for recycling and reprocessing. The aerospace industry is a very interesting one. We've had a very strong key supply chain within that for years. Now what we're beginning to see is a trend towards what happens to aircrafts at the end of life. The UK at the moment is number 3 in the world for decommissioning aircrafts. We can achieve somewhere between 80 and 85% recovery and recyclability of materials. However, under the net zero ambition, that's going to drive to achieve 100% recyclability and recoverability. The UK are also in an interesting situation where we don't necessarily have as much land to create long-term storage of aircrafts. So we might be the first regions to be pushed into identifying opportunities of 100% recoverability of aircrafts at the end of their life and repurposing the high value materials that are used in the construction of those, whether that's repurposing and redeployment in other industry sectors, or whether that's looking at more sustainable technologies to help sweat the asset life, especially as we're moving towards an alternative propulsion mechanism. So the operators of the assets are very interested to see how they can deploy more sustainable practice, how they can demonstrate that they're trying to be more green and more responsible with their aircrafts at the end of life. And that creates opportunity for new value chains across Scotland to truly take advantage of that and see how we can repurpose and recover value and utility in these materials. So what is our approach? How is this programme going to deliver impact? So what we've been doing since the award of the programme is we've been talking to industries, the operators and the OEMs to define some of the key challenges in the area, some of the key opportunities where they'd like to see local content being created, but also where they perceive some of the issues of assets at the end of life, particularly against the net zero ambition. We're looking to distill those down to sizable bite-sized kind of key challenges that will begin to kick off events in the near future to promote each sector, some of the key target areas that industry are looking to address around net zero, asset life extension, or repurposing of the waste stream. And then we'll look to start building clusters with the community of SMEs in the regions that have been invested in the programme. How we plan to work with the small to medium-sized enterprises is to offer a suite of toolkits. And this ranges from a company remanufacturing audit to assess how advanced you are in sustainable practices and how you could improve your own kind of carbon footprint in your day-to-day operations. There's a design for remanufacturing toolkit, so you can understand how processes and approaches can be designed in a way that they're more sustainable, so you're more aware of your waste streams, but you can also demonstrate that by you providing a service, you're helping your clients offset their carbon footprints, you're developing green credentials. Sustainable business models to understand how servitization models or circular economy models have been successful in the past by both large and small corporations on a global footprint. There's also a future SME toolkit around sustainability that helps to identify the agileness or the agile behaviour of the company and where it might be able to improve to new market opportunities and developing new service offerings for those industries, particularly under the climate change or the net zero ambition of the UK. We'll also be raising awareness of sustainable production and practices that have been adopted across Scotland thus far, and also relevant standards and codes of practice that industry need to be aware of. But naturally, that will feed into some CPD training course material that we are developing and online e-learning material that companies can have access to free of charge. And the end ambition is to create a testbed of adoption to help see where you've started and where you've ended, and where we've been able to create impact in terms of adopting our practices that we're trying to embed with other companies, but also to build clusters or collaborative CR&D with large OEMs and operators and yourselves to deliver new value chains and align into Scottish Enterprise, Scottish Government's kind of sustainable manufacturing strategies. Where are we at the moment? So we've just recently closed a call for our project manager, so they should be appointed within the next month or so. We are still seeking for 3 supply chain specialists, one of which will look after each relevant sector we've identified. We do have our manufacturing specialist, our future SME facilitator, and remanufacturing specialist in play. So we are open for business. Please do drop us an email if you are interested in specific aspects or specific industries and have your own ideas of how you might be able to provide a sustainable service for these industries to comply to the net zero ambition. So just a reminder to parties on the call. So this is a partnership between East Ayrshire Council, South Ayrshire Council, South Lanarkshire, and Smart Sustainable East Kilbride. The technical delivery aspect will be delivered by the University of Strathclyde, the Scottish Institute for Remanufacturing, and the National Manufacturing Institute Scotland. Why these parties? Well, the National Manufacturing Institute Scotland has predominantly been set up as a group of industrial-led manufacturing research and development facilities, basically to give open access to small to medium-sized enterprises to help them to develop and skill up for the next generation of service offering or product that they're looking to launch, and more so these days focused on how do we do that on a sustainable principle. Do you need support in selecting appropriate materials or appropriate manufacturing processes to reduce your carbon footprint? Or are you one of the disrupted ones where you need to reduce your overarching carbon footprint of your operation? The other party is the Scottish Institute for Remanufacturing, where for the past 6 years we've been working with industry to adopt sustainable practices, identifying relevant technologies and business models that can be embraced by other organisations, and looking to create networks and academic expertise to establish CR&D and knowledge exchange programmes within industry. So it's just put on the existing knowledge of both parties to try to present a free service to industry, to help inform you, to help provide demonstrators, to help point out other organisations who have been successful, and to build programmes around 3 key high-value manufacturing sectors for Scotland. And please feel free to drop the team an email. This slide will also be shared with parties at the end, so you'll be able to contact either myself, David Butler, or Catherine Finnegan to engage with programme. And Michael, that's it from me.
Okay, thank you very much, Paul. I find this a bit difficult to comprehend right now. We have 62 people and 63 on here, and we haven't had any questions so far. So just can you just what sort, when you're talking about the circular economy market that we're thinking of exploiting with this project, do you have some sense as to the actual size of the market? Not just talking, obviously we were talking about for South Ayrshire, it would be mostly centred on the renewable sector with the refurbishment of wind turbines. We're also looking at aerospace and rail as well. Do you have some concept of the size of the market that we're currently looking at?
So in terms of size, so it's projected that the UK kind of circular economy or remanufacturing market will probably grow to around about 1.2 billion, and that's based on traditional practices, and there's a true opportunity that we, as the UK, within our core manufacturing supply chain, are going to start being pushed to demonstrate that the materials, the means of manufacture, and even the entire value chain is compliant to the net zero ambition. And what we believe is going to start happening within legislation is, as we've seen in one of the slides, that predominantly for our entire UK greenhouse gas emissions, manufacturing, and that's the consumption of products externally to allow us to assemble, to build, or to provide our manufacturing services and products to the consumers. That accounts for around 15 to 30% of greenhouse gas emissions. That's been targeted by the UK government and Scottish government to try to create a reduction in that. And the risk is, if we don't demonstrate sustainable practices, it could potentially lead to being offshore if we continue to account for embedded carbon of products. So what we're saying is this is a true opportunity where operators and OEMs are becoming more mindful of where they're sourcing their products, and where traditionally we could never necessarily compete on overhead cost of labour, but we could always compete on quality. So this is just an additional area that we feel that the UK could, Scotland could strongly compete on, where if we show that we're sustainable, we're more green in our manufacturing methods, so that's around reducing your waste or being able to recover waste in the production line and repurposing it. That's also looking at how do you transition from maybe a gas intensive process to a more decarbonised process, whether that's adoption of hydrogen or electrical systems. But it's also to build clusters around, do you feel that there's a potential business opportunity for you to accept feedstock from other industries, such as the wind industry or the rail or the aerospace industry, and be able to repurpose that asset to present a second life in a new area. So it's quite interesting that people are talking about dynamic workspaces. And what we're hearing is there might be an opportunity for commuter towns to start setting up regional hubs or areas where parties can go to if they can't work from home, and create a dynamic workspace that's local to them. So could we take some of the existing infrastructure, say a rolling stock rail carriage of the 4,000 that are being decommissioned, and convert it into mobile office space that can then be deployed in region relevant for that area's need or demand at that time. What we're also seeing as well is we will, I hope, in the next month or two, be releasing a bit of a white paper on the size of the aircraft decommissioning market and how Scotland can play a key role in delivering the ambition of net zero in aerospace. So at the moment, there's a predominant focus on sustainable flight. But what's being overlooked at the moment is sustainable aircraft design, in terms of how do you make it more remanufacturable in its service life, but also at the end of its life, how do you make it more recoverable or more sustainable, that you could potentially repurpose and reutilise elsewhere in a green and decarbonised process. And that too is quite appealing to parties such as ATI, and we have been talking to them on larger programs in this area to identify relevant technologies and also relevant markets that would be interested in accepting certain components from aircrafts at the end of their life as well.
So we have a question here from Councillor Robert Brown. So what are the challenges in gearing up local companies to take advantage of these opportunities? For example, rail asset refurbishment.
So I think what it is it's partly the understanding of what you have to do in a remanufacturing process and getting comfortable with the level of risk or what you need to demonstrate to the end client so that they will actually sign off on you as being a service provider under remanufacturing. What we're also helping to address with the operators and OEMs is some of the barriers to accepting the adoption of refurbed products and components. It's also a level of communication as well, because the operators and OEMs don't have time in their day-to-day operations to have about 20 or 40 discussions. What we're hoping to do with this program is to create that potential one-stop shop where we can talk to the operators and OEMs. They're sharing with us some of the technical challenges that they have and some of the areas of interest they'd like to see local content created. And we can work with the SMEs to supply them a bit more information of sustainable practices and key aspects in terms of recertification, retesting of components, but also approaches on how to remanufacture goods and how it might align to their existing skills and capabilities. Because it's quite hard to change the mindset, but it's seen some success. We've seen success in over 56 companies, across Scotland within SIR, where we've been able to see an impact over the past 5 years of them generating about £1.2 million return in adopting sustainable practices, circular economy. We've been able to support the adoption of, I think, 30 or 40 new employments in the area of sustainability. But it was a learning curve. It was that journey to help them understand, what is a sustainable practice? How does it differ to my current practice? What are the economics? But it's also around testing. Rather than manufacturing new, you're focused more on characterization of the asset as it comes in, what work needs to be done, and how you do that work in a time-effective means to protect your kind of profitability of providing a remanufacturing service.
Right, thank you. So we have another question here. It's from Jordan Lindsay from Mage. Says, thanks for an overview of the project. How does an SME in East Kilbride with the capability to redevelop legacy products for a range of sectors and managing to get an advert in for Mage at the same time, range of sectors actually get involved in the life extension projects you outlined? Are there plans in place to tender workloads from the projects to local firms?
So what the intent is, how do you get involved? Just drop us an email. We're open for business. We want to start engaging companies to even map current capabilities in the regions. What the intent is we're here to assess kind of the maturity of companies on that journey and build clusters and relations with the operators and OEMs where appropriate to actually start planning programs of application of funding with Scottish Government and Zero Waste Scotland to then tender for work. So this won't be delivering kind of remanufactured demonstrators. The intent of this is to support companies on that journey, identify market opportunities, but build clusters to then apply for government funding to create those regional demonstrators. And we're working very closely with kind of Scottish Enterprise, Zero Waste Scotland on this, to ensure that we're also targeting certain calls of funding or test beds or regional demonstrators that they're looking to develop in the area of kind of decarbonisation and net zero, particularly in these areas. So welcome discussion. Please drop myself or my colleague David an email. We can talk about that more, about the company's capabilities and where you are.
I guess I just had one last question, was first mover advantage is always going to be important in a lot of these things. See, if we're just really focusing on the renewables and the wind turbines, who else is currently doing this?
So at the moment on a global footprint, who else is doing this? So the Chinese and the Americans are looking in these areas to create more sustainable practice. There's one or two organisations down south as well in the UK looking to provide remanufacturing services out of Cranfield University and other like automotive auto parts, who remanufacture kind of automotive components, but they're now beginning to remanufacture electrical vehicles. What we're looking to do is Scotland's in quite a good position where we've got funding available to industry who are trying to adopt sustainable practices from Zero Waste Scotland, and we'll see future calls coming from Scottish Enterprise and Innovate UK in this area. It's also good that we're truly supported by Scott government looking to create local content by 2045. So that puts kind of Scotland in a leader position because we've got the most aggressive kind of timeline on achieving net zero. So really we have got competition out there. The operators and OEMs though are looking for more local content in region. So it doesn't necessarily mean that you need to manufacture the products in the first instance, but through the Right to Repair Act, it means that it's opened up new value propositions for an industry to start presenting servitization models. We can even introduce parties who they've developed and designed a product that is remanufacturable and upgradable in its entire life cycle, but they then order components from China and from India to manufacture and assemble the part, but it's their knowledge, their USP that enables them to provide that servitization model because they know what to recover, what the market value is and when to recover it. So it's quite interesting.
All right, and we need to move on to the next presenter in like 1 second. This one was a very quick question, and it was, we've spoken about the circular economy and refurbishment. Will there be opportunities for OEMs to insert themselves into the supply chain as well?
Yeah, completely. At the end of the day, we're looking to also drive OEMs to adopt these practices, to start introducing it in the design stage, because you can design out 70 or 80% of the carbon footprint of a product or an asset at that early stage. And also if they start entering this could also create opportunities for both the OEM and SMEs to work closer together to create that agile workforce to deal with the requirements of servitization business models.
Okay. All right, well, Paul, David, I think you're there as well. Thank you so much. So we're going to keep the questions running. So if there's any questions that we haven't been able to answer in this quick session, I'll collate those and I'll pass them on to Paul. And again, if you want to contact Paul or David, I will circulate the contact details after this. And also this presentation will be available as a recording afterwards, which I will send over. Right, Maureen, good morning. Are you ready to go?
Yep, I'll just kick us off. Thank you, Mike.
Oh, sorry. Hi, Jennifer.
Hi there. Sorry, I just jumped in there. No, thank you, Michael, for the introduction and for the opportunity to be here. It's been really great to hear from Paul this morning about a fantastic project made possible by the Carbon Challenge Fund. Now, continuing the theme of the low carbon agenda and embedded opportunities, it really is an exciting time for this area, and I'm delighted that we're able to be here to talk to you about something that we're really passionate about and know from 3 years' experience will have a huge impact on local people. Continuous improvement, sustainability and innovation are the lifeblood of our organisation. What started as a unique approach to training to address a skills need and bridge the gap between education and industry employment has evolved into an award-winning model and a vehicle for addressing a number of wider economic and social issues so prevalent at this time. This year, as we expand our offering, we see South Lanarkshire has been central to our vision of transformative change and a new approach to training and job creation. My colleague Maureen is going to take you through some of the detail around our new South Lanarkshire Academy, its impact, and why now is absolutely the critical time to change the way we view and develop employment opportunities within this space. Thank you, and Maureen, I'll pass over to you.
Thank you. Thanks, Jennifer. So I'm just going to share my screen with you. Can you all see my presentation okay? Yep. Sorry, I can't see you guys, so Hopefully it's all going okay. So I wanted to start this morning by giving you just a quick introduction to AC White. I know Michael's covered a little bit, but AC White were established coming up on 48.
Sorry, Maureen, we can't see anything.
Yeah, it's not shared that.
Oh, bear with me. Let's just see. Oh my, this is the joys. So let me just.
That looks like it now.
You see that okay now?
Yep. Yep, perfect.
Good. That's great. Okay, sorry about that. The joys. So yeah, as I say, I just wanted to give you a little bit of background to AC White, just to give you the context of who we are and what we're about. So AC White were established coming up on 48 years ago. We'll be 48 in November. We're a main contractor in the major refurbishment of social and private housing, and our clients are local authorities and housing associations. So we've worked with over 24 of the 32 local authorities and over 50 housing associations, and we've done lots of projects in partnership with South Lanarkshire Council in the past. So we have a particular focus on energy efficiency, and the work that we deliver is all on occupied housing. Therefore, the resident really is at the heart of everything that we do. At AC White, we recognise that customer satisfaction can only be achieved by providing a service that totally meets or ideally exceeds our clients' and their residents' expectations. In order to protect and control that positive experience for residents, we directly employ our 160 plus operatives, all of whom are fully trained and qualified in their respective roles. Excuse me. So every member of the AC White team adopts a right first time approach, which drives our commitment to delivering our quality as standard. So I thought it was worth setting the scene for where we are at the moment and the opportunity for the Skills Academy. So the Scottish Government have set targets of net zero by 2045, reducing fuel poverty to less than 10% of children by 2030, and building a wellbeing economy. So the draft heat and building strategy sets out how the Scottish Government will achieve this. Another document that was published recently is the Scottish Government's consultation on the Scottish skills requirements to deliver the heat and building strategy. And Jennifer actually formed part of the Short Life Working Group, where she provided industry context to the skills requirements. So there's a report produced from this which outlines 19 recommendations, and one of which was a recommendation to develop a skills and qualification matrix for the supply chain. And finally, the Scottish Government's programme for Scotland outlines how they have committed to a national mission to create new jobs, good jobs and green jobs that support our green recovery as we emerge from this pandemic. There's a particular focus on our young people, supporting, retraining and investing in our Green New Deal to tackle climate change. And they also commit to promoting equality and helping our young people to fulfil their potential. So world-leading ambitions, ambitious targets and an investment of almost 1.6 billion for heat and energy efficiency projects across Scotland. It is quite clear that this sector is weighted under immense opportunity. And I've actually heard it termed recently that we need a carbon army to deliver some of these ambitions. I think it's been quoted that there will be around 22,000 jobs potentially created by 2028. So it's massive. So by designing innovative, appropriate pathways to training and job opportunities, we have the chance to grow an entire new generation of skilled operatives who'll take this country into an energy efficient future. So construction stops being about where you end up and it starts being that positive career destination, and it's a sector where people have the potential to thrive. So with this in mind, we launched the AC White and South Lanarkshire College Energy Efficiency Skills Academy this month. So the South Lanarkshire, The South Lanarkshire Skills Academy model has created an opportunity for 24 local candidates to learn a trade. They'll also attain a recognised qualification and they get guaranteed full-time permanent employment as external wall insulation installers on successful completion of the training. So initially the course is launching with a focus on EWI, but at the same time the Scottish Government have outlined commitment to rapidly scale up deployment of net zero heating systems, such as heat pumps and heat networks. They are aiming to double installations each year so that by 2030 over 1 million homes and around 50,000 non-domestic buildings will be converted to these types of systems. So the Academy model, which was recently featured in the Just Transition Commission report, is already looking to expand its proposition to include heat pumps imminently. So how does it all work? So we're looking to create the 20-minute neighbourhood. So initially we'll establish a 5, ideally 10-year strategic partnership with the local authority or the housing provider. We will design the Skills Academy model to align with their specific decarbonisation and housing strategy requirements, and we'll create an evolving curriculum that will grow year on year to their specific needs. We'll recruit local candidates across the discipline requirements, and local SMEs are invited to use the Academy to upskill their employees, or in fact even contribute to the curriculum. This is all about creating the local capacity to deliver on these ambitions. And we could extend the opportunity to the South Lanarkshire Council delivery teams as well. So candidates, or academos as we refer to them, will learn and qualify locally, and AC-wide create local green jobs that deliver the decarbonisation and housing strategies. So the outcome is fairly simple. Local residents are upskilled, quality jobs are created with fair work for everyone, and local communities are genuinely empowered. So just a little bit about the course and some background to it. So the course is a full-time, 5 days a week, industry-led curriculum. It's a 20-week duration, and we'll do 2 intakes annually. So each intake will take 12 cohorts, so 12 academos each intake. The course also has 2 dedicated lectures, and it's designed to be a blend of training, so a rotation of in-college and on-site training. And the academos are branded as AC-White academos from day one. They're given branded PPE, all their tools and equipment are provided, and they are encouraged to live and breathe the AC-White values. Like we want them to feel like part of our team from the very, very beginning, and we want them to work towards that successful graduation and employment opportunity. So the candidates themselves, we're looking to attract as diverse a mix of candidates as possible from the local area. You know, this is an alternative potentially to an apprenticeship, and apprenticeships absolutely have their place, but for some people, a 4-year training commitment with no guaranteed employment at the end of it is just simply too long. And actually, when you look at the numbers that we're looking to attract to this sector, potentially 4 years is too long. So this is an alternative. We also invite people with a bit of life experience that have maybe missed the apprenticeship route. The life experience can contribute in a number of ways. And we're also looking for people with work ethic and a desire to really develop and secure that career. So a little bit about the in-college training. So Michael kind of touched on the purpose-built facility at the start of the presentation, which we've got a little image of there. So the purpose-built facility simulates a real-world environment. So taking into account, for example, the elements and all that brings, and they're learning the skills in a real environment. So like I said, we've got dedicated lecturers who are trained trainers, but they have a background in the trade that they're teaching specific to the core curriculum. So they're specialists in their field. And the training's all about repetition. Repetition, just keep repeating the tasks until they've completely mastered the technique. One of the other things that we also do is we contribute quite heavily from AC White to the curriculum. So our health and safety manager, for example, will do a health and safety piece with the academos. And what's fundamental to the success of these ambitious targets and these energy efficiency improvements is consumer confidence. So we spend a lot of time with the academics. Our customer service team spend a huge amount of time relaying our values and our ethos in that area to make sure that they understand that the part they play in that. And we also invite our partner suppliers and system manufacturers to do sessions throughout the course. So the on-site training is taking everything they've learned in that real life environment in college and taking it out onto site. The important thing here is that the lecturer attends site with them to ensure that there's an effective transition from college to site. So all the academos are inducted onto site as a normal member of the AC White team. They'd be appointed tasks and a dedicated mentor. Now the mentors that they'll be appointed will be some of AC White's most experienced operatives. And the assessment on site is ongoing and the training is continuous, but we give them real-time feedbacks about reviewing the techniques and really tweaking that to make sure that their time on site and then what they take back to college is very specific and unique to them. And ultimately, we want them to be a success. We want them to succeed and we want them to move on to that employment with us. So just a very brief overview of some of what the Skills Academy has achieved to date. So up until now, we've had 42 academos through the Academy. 24 of them are still studying, despite the pandemic and its best efforts. We've employed 7 to date and 16 have graduated to achieve their SVQ installation and building treatments. So what we need to make this work, in simple terms, to offer that local training, the local jobs, we need the local work. But I could talk about the Skills Academy all day, but there's no one better to tell you the story of its success than the candidates themselves. So I'll just tell you a couple of their stories, if that's all right. So Josh here was in his early 30s and he missed out on the apprenticeship route for one reason or another. And he dabbled in trades, but he had no formal training and moved from job to job with no real direction in life. So the Skills Academy secured him a qualification, a trade and a career. So Kenny was one of our younger academos. His plan was to pursue a career in football, but unfortunately that didn't happen. Desperately looking for somewhere to channel all that discipline and focus, he applied to the AC White Skills Academy because he knew that he wanted to work outside, he knew that he wanted to work hard, and he knew that he wanted a career. So he is now also an AC White employee and he's shown real promise, and we can see him progressing through the business relatively quickly. And Chris was in his mid-30s, 3 children and a 4th one on the way. He worked in a garden centre for over 10 years, but this was a job, it wasn't a passion. It was a big risk to change direction at that point in his life, but the Skills Academy offered him the opportunity to reskill relatively quickly, but the guaranteed job at the end of it gave him the security to take the leap. And he's never looked back. And one of the things that he told us was that he's incredibly proud that he was able to show his kids that it's never too late to learn something new and to love what you do. And I've actually had the pleasure of meeting all of these guys' families at the graduation ceremony that they held at AC White headquarters. And the consistent theme throughout all of it was that the Skills Academy presented an opportunity to give these guys a future, and a future with hope. So that's our story so far. I'll give you back to Jennifer.
Maureen. Now, in order for this model to succeed and for change to happen at the pace that Scotland needs, we must first engage the hearts and minds, and it's clear that South Lanarkshire has a drive and ambition to do just that. Hopefully the content today has proven informative and insightful, and we'd be delighted to answer any questions that might have come up. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, Jennifer and Maureen, thank you very much for coming along today. So we do have a question, and it's from Graham Simpson, who's MSP for Central Scotland, so he may be in a position to help if you answer this in the right way. So do you know of any successful heat networks that have been fitted to existing developments? And in terms of creating that local work, what incentives do you think should be in place to encourage and help private homeowners to decarbonise? What would provide that nudge?
Yep. Yeah, thank you, Graham. I'll just break that down into the kind of two elements, if that's okay. So in terms of the heat networks, yes, there have been success with this across the country, and there's a couple of models. I think where we're coming from, and I guess what we're seeing of the industry at the moment, is that it's a little bit disjointed across the energy efficiency and decarbonisation space. And really what we're looking to do with the academy and kind of the model that we're proposing is actually to apply a more joined up approach to that, to ensure that we're dealing with a kind of whole house and whole area approach, to ensure that it's the right thing for the community, for the people that live there across multi-tenures. And also the multi-tenures is an aspect that does need to be navigated to ensure that, you know, across the various different sectors of that, with the different regulation that underpins that, they're getting a consistent approach and it's fair for all residents within the area. So I think there's a bit of work that still needs to be done on that. In terms of the private sector, yeah, that's a challenge, and I know there's a lot of debate at the moment around the, you know, is it the carrot or stick approach, and probably will end up on a bit of both, to be honest. We need to, there's various different aspects of this, you know, some simple ones being we need to raise awareness within the private sector, and I think there needs to be larger scale campaigns on this to ensure that people are getting the right information at the right time and in a way that's digestible. You know, I think the technology is there in a lot of sense. We need to ensure that we're bringing people on the journey with us as well there. We have to make it aspirational. I mean, obviously the likes of Tesla have been very successful within the electric car space, you know, for a certain group of people to make that aspirational. We find that actually with external wall insulation, part of the drive for people is the makeover that the property gets, you know, and sometimes that's unfortunately is the sale rather than the energy efficiency aspect of it. So there's a lot in the marketing there in terms of how we're selling to different sectors of the market to ensure that we're getting the approach needed, and that all stakeholders involved in the process are completely aligned with that strategy from the outset, and it's planned and designed in a way that's going to address all of these challenges. Hopefully that's answered a wee bit of your question there, Graham.
Okay, so I don't have any other questions at the moment, although Warren McIntyre from Zero Waste Scotland is drawing attention to the heat network in Stirling, which extracts heat from the Scottish water site, and you can find out more about that from the Scottish Government LCITP pages. Let's change my glasses. So is there any other questions for either Jennifer or Maureen? Very shy this morning. I just had a quick question.
Sorry, Michael, there might have been a hand.
Yeah, who have we got?
William raised his
Hey,
hand.
what? Seeing as yourself, William, I will unmute you. How about that?
Thank you, Michael. I feel honoured and privileged to be unmuted.
You're very welcome.
I'm intrigued. Obviously, clearly, your background has been in the refurbishment and installation of housing, but am I correct in assuming that the reason for that is really you're dealing with buildings that are concrete facades or rough cast, and that the reason that you're not really involved that much in industrial type buildings is just simply, you know, they're aluminium clad and insulated at the moment. So we've got some, frankly, pretty tired concrete framed commercial buildings. I take it there's no barrier to your product being applied to those. It's merely a function of the construction, the original construction type of the building that limits any application of your products.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, it's a really good question. I think up until this point, yes, it's been predominantly the social housing sector of the market that's kind of led the way on a lot of this. I mean, as you know, Maureen covered in her presentation, a lot of these measures we've been installing for over 30 years. So, you know, a lot of them, they aren't new. There have been developments to ensure that they can be installed in different construction types. And obviously that's always the start point with any project. But no, what the purpose of the building is not the important aspect. The construction of it is, and it's about getting the right solution for the right building to ensure that it's a sustainable solution that's going to take it, kind of future-proof it. And we have, you know, over the years worked in various different commercial, public buildings, schools. So yeah, it's the same principles that are applied.
Okay, so I know we're at the top of the hour, so if you have to go, please go. But are there any other questions? No, I guess everyone gets to have a quick cup of tea before they roll on to the next meeting, if there is an opportunity to do so. So I just want to say thank you very much for coming along again this morning. It's been great to see you all kind of virtually. So it was a very good turnout this morning. So I'm hoping you all found the presentations informative. Again, there will be a recording of this that will be circulated after we finish today. I will also send a newsletter with the contact information for Jennifer, Maureen, Paul and David, and also some information on the work near home as well. And again, if there's any other projects or any other activities that you want to ask about Smart Sustainable East Kilbride, you can please contact me straight afterwards as well. Other than that, thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.